There's a kind of frustration many women experience in midlife that's hard to explain. Your body feels different, movement feels different, energy feels different, and suddenly the things that used to feel easy don't feel easy anymore. So you push harder, try to get back on track, force yourself to stay consistent. But what if the real problem isn't discipline? What if the deeper issue is that you've stopped feeling connected to your own body? In this episode, I'm talking about the midlife body disconnect no one really talks about. Why so many women feel frustrated, discouraged, or unfamiliar inside their own bodies in midlife. And why the solution may have less to do with discipline and more to do with reconnecting to the body you have now. If you've been telling yourself it's fine, but deep down you know something needs to change, you're in the right place. Welcome to the Pursue Your Spark podcast, and I'm your host, Heike Yates. This is a show for the in-between seasons of midlife, where we uncover the habits and comfort zones keeping you stuck and move you towards strength and action without forcing a reinvention. Have you noticed that the Pursue Your Spark podcast got a facelift? Literally, we have a new cover for the episode, and it was simply a spur of the moment. I am sitting there talking to ChatGPT, my sidekick buddy, and I said, I want a new cover. So I took an existing photo and I added that photo to ChatGPT and said, create something new, fresh from my existing photo. And I love the way it looks. It has fresh, bright colors, and the image on it still looks like me, but a little bit more AI generated. So check it out. I hope you love it as much as I do. But now let's dive into what we're talking about today is our midlife body disconnect. I just recently was in Germany and I said I need to make sure that I take care of myself before I take care of my parents. My dad is really not doing well and I'm not sure how much longer he will live, and my mom is not doing great. So I decided I'm going to fly to Germany and see what's going on and see how I best can help them with my visit and their tasks that they need to conquer. And, I've wanted to make sure that I was taking care of myself first. Visiting family always puts exercise on the back burner for many of us. There's so many unpredictable days and emotional days that you feel wiped out at the end of the day. So I had to decide whether to exercise or not, or how would I do that best. And so I was at the hotel room, and the bigger question wasn't really, should I work out? The biggest question was, what do I need right now? And I set a boundary with that. Number one, I've stayed at a hotel, so not at my mom's place. That I had a place that had breakfast, so I didn't have to think about where my first meal of the day would come from. And that I had some boundaries in the morning, that the first thing I would do is get up and wake up and do some Pilates in the room. Or I would go to the gym that was part of the hotel. And then afterwards, I went for a long walk to a lake that was nearby in the vicinity, which was so serene. And I posted some of that on Instagram, and you may have seen it. Just to decompress and de-stress, to walk and take the stress off, go to the hotel, and then eat my breakfast. And then I was ready to face the day. And that made me, that moment or that situation made me realize something I see in so many women that are in midlife. We think we're frustrated with fitness because we can't fit it in, but often we're feeling disconnected from ourselves. What do we need right now is often a question we just don't address, we ignore it. But we'll talk about this today more in depth. I don't feel like myself anymore. This may be one of the most common things women say in midlife. And that's also why I wrote my book, Pursue Your Spark, around that idea, because initially I thought when somebody says, I don't feel like myself anymore, people were referring to it as, I want to be like my younger self. I want to be like in my 30s or in my 40s. But as you find out when you read the book, this wasn't the case. And this was the aha moment for me to say, oh my goodness, this is why I need to write this book. This is not about fitness and nutrition tips, which the book also includes, because I don't leave you hanging there. But it was the feeling of, I don't feel like myself anymore now in the skin I'm in. So that really triggered my book, Pursue Your Spark. But I hear this all the time, and women feel stunned. They are not sure what to actually do with what they just said. And it is part of that we're losing the familiarity with our body and where it is now. And we're feeling uncomfortable in our own skin. We're not quite certain where to or how to pinpoint that feeling of uncertainty in our body or that uncomfortable feeling. But it's there and it keeps nagging at us. And I've talked about this a lot because I think this is the pinnacle that really changes things when we really honestly ask ourselves why that is. Why does that feeling show up for so many of us? And why does it affect confidence so deeply? Because if I don't feel like myself anymore, I don't feel confident because I don't know what it should feel like, how my body is responding to the things I'm offering it, the exercises, the nutrition, or even our mindset, why we feel so disconnected. And disconnection does not support confidence. And most women assume this is a motivation problem, but I don't think so. And you know what? Disconnection doesn't happen overnight. It usually shows up through small everyday behaviors, like we're ignoring that we're tired. We're ignoring that we're fatigued. When you imagine that you already wake up when you're tired, pushing through the day feels almost impossible. Pushing through discomfort of hard workouts that no longer align with your goals, that where you are now in your life. And you feel discouraged because the things that you did before don't work anymore. And I talked about this in a previous episode that we keep doing the same things over and over, although we don't see the changes anymore. And we keep going back to it because it's familiar. But we may also avoid mirrors and photos. Oh, I don't want to be in a photo. I don't want to see my body. I don't want to see what my body looks like right now, even though your body is amazing. And you don't give it the credit that it deserves because of things that affect you from what you think you should be, where you should be, what you should be, or whatever you see on social media. You might be dreading exercise because it feels harder now, but you keep, as I just said, keep going back to the same thing over and over that doesn't produce the results that you need now, or you skip movement altogether. You just stop, you give up, and you constantly are judging yourself for everything and anything. I didn't do enough exercise today. I didn't eat well today. Oh, like my example, when I went to Germany, I could have just skipped exercise and then felt guilty afterwards and judged myself for not doing the exercises that I promised myself to do, although it was tempting, okay, because then I felt guilty if I were to take away another hour from my parents. And I see this in us ladies so often. That's why this episode is so important to me, that we talk about the body disconnect that no one really talks about. And when did your body become something you managed instead of something you live in, you enjoy, you nurture, you embrace those changes, flabby skin and all, because that's normal, and step away from those fitness trends that no longer serve you? When that disconnect grows, most women respond the same way. And how do we respond? We instantly, air quotes, go into fix it mode. We want to fix things. That's what deep down we all want to do. But our culture has trained us to believe every body change needs a solution. Yeah, that's how we've been trained over years. And I've been in the fitness industry for 40 years and been teaching Pilates for 25 years. There's always the fix it idea that it has to be fixed. It can't be like this, and we can't leave it like this. And it starts with our diet culture. There's a diet on every corner, a cleanse on every corner, eat this, not that kind of idea. But we have learned so much over the years that we know what we need to eat and don't eat and what feels good for our body and our stomachs and our goals that we want to achieve in our health. But then something else comes along, and I am no exception because I see what you see. I'm on the same social medias, on Instagram, YouTube, and it all sounds so good that you're like, oh, this time, this diet, this approach is the one that really has to work and bring the results that I want to change my body the way I think it should be, and it should evolve, and it should look. And the other thing is, too, we are afraid of aging, and aging is such a beautiful thing. Yes, we have more wrinkles, we have more saggy skin and a flatter butt and not such a tight belly, but we have wisdom. We have learned to give grace to other people. We can share with others the knowledge we have gained over time, and we still can be strong and fit and healthy, but not by the culture, by the fitness culture that makes us believe we should all be doing pull-ups. Okay, here, and you've heard it before maybe, but my clients definitely have. I suck at pull-ups. When I was a bodybuilder in my mid-30s, I could do 3 pull-ups, pulling your whole body weight up with a bar. I'm not any different now. Right now, I can't do 1. And you see so many women, it feels like it, at least when you look at social media, because once you trigger the algorithm, they show you all the stuff that is exactly the same, doing pull-ups. I just can't. I never could, but that doesn't make me feel less. So thinking of what happens as we age is something to embrace, but work with it to be stronger. And then we have comparison. We compare, and my example was just a good one as well, is we compare ourselves to the other women that we see on the interwebs. We see, oh, wow, they all can do pull-ups. Look at them. Why can't I do this? And there are many reasons why you can't. And sometimes comparison is healthy to get you motivated or to give you a slightly different angle of what you're doing. But sometimes comparison is not good for our mind and body because we compare ourselves to something that is not related to where we are in life and who we are and what we need at this part in our life. The other thing we oftentimes do is we search for the next answer. I can't tell you how many responses I've got to a YouTube video that the question where I stated was, what is the best exercise for women over 50? The next best answer is never the next best thing. It's the thing that works for you. It's the thing that works with you, not against you, as we're, instead of looking for the next best new answer, we are needing to look back in what we've learned, what we have learned from the things we did, the exercises, the nutrition approaches, instead of trying to find something new. Or we're trying to recreate our past. The past is gone. We've learned from it. We have gold nuggets from that past. And we also have things that we know that some of the things didn't work well back then, and they won't work now. But we love to go back and say, oh, this is what we're going to need to do in order to feel the way we used to. But it's not. This fix-it mode is just, you gotta let it go. We are fixing things because it feels productive. We're doing something. We're not just sitting around hoping things would change, which is great too. But if we keep fixing over and over and nothing ever changes, that feels frustrating. That makes you feel unproductive. That makes you feel less than. And we do not need to do that. We're forcing things that feel familiar. And familiarity has its good and its not so good sides. And in our context today, let's not force something that's familiar because we believe that it makes the change and that we're connecting to our body as we are now. But before we blame ourselves, we need to acknowledge something really important. And I know many of the changes that we experience in midlife and we notice are real. Let's start with hormone changes. Even before perimenopause, so perimenopause, menopause, and beyond, we are severely affected by those hormone changes, and it makes our body feel different. I sometimes refer to it as it's an outer body experience when you have night sweats, you can't sleep, you're irritable, and you could rip everybody's head off. This is real that we experience that, or we are much slower with the recovery phase than we used to. You know, you may have banged out a super hard gym workout, and the next day you did it again. Now we need a day of recovery or a different workout. Stress is a big one that increases cortisol levels, that is dealing with the air quotes again, the belly fat we all are dealing with. Stress is not conducive to helping us, which is the next point, sleep. We're trying to mitigate our stress in our sleep the best way we can. And this all makes our bodies feel very different. Or life demands. Like in my case, dealing with my aging parents, having grandkids, having a husband that I want to do stuff with, and still have my own kids that are adults now. But everything, or running two businesses. As you know, I have a brick and mortar Pilates studio here in Maryland, but I also have Pursue Your Spark that is seen by women worldwide. So thinking of all these things, when it all compounds, you have this, as I said earlier, this outer body experience that we all feel, some people more and some people less. So in episode 259, I talk about how systems that once worked no longer work the same way. I'll put a link in the show notes so you can look up that episode as well and listen to it. Your body is operating under different conditions than it was 20 years ago. And sometimes there's another emotion underneath of this all. I think many women are carrying a loss they haven't fully acknowledged yet. And for once, grieving former abilities, the things you used to be able to do. I hear it all the time. I used to be an awesome tennis player. Now I can't run the court. Or I used to lift super heavy weights. Now I'm only, air quotes, I'm only lifting 8 pounds. And that is okay. I think we need to allow ourselves to grieve for these times, or lack of abilities, or just the sense of grief. And it's okay to sit with it and feel that it's okay to be grieving. And I had to stop running 3 years ago. I had a choice to either get a full knee replacement, or that, which afterwards I wouldn't have run on my knee replacement either, or stop running and walk and hike instead. But it honestly took me a whole year to deal with the grief of and identity of not being a runner anymore. I had identified myself, and many of you can relate to that, with the sense of, I used to be a tennis player, as I said earlier. I used to be a runner before I even became a triathlete. But now I wasn't a runner anymore. I couldn't run. And I was just, air quotes, I'm hiking, I'm walking. What kind of workout is that? It's a great workout. But I didn't feel that. I felt like I lost all my abilities, and I didn't know where to look for that validation that I had when I was a runner. And after a year, I had wrapped my head around uh, the point that this is an okay thing, that it is a transition, that it was okay for me that I grieved for a year and fussed about it. And then I had to let it go and said, okay, this is the new me now. And we're also grieving old expectations, like with my running story, that I can't run anymore. And I'm expecting myself to, now I get a knee replacement and this will change things. But it wouldn't. I would wear down my joint, and that's not a good idea either. So the grieving process, it brings us ease. If we allow ourselves to grieve for who we were and who we are now, and that we are in transition, and that we are creating a new identity through the new abilities, that we're actually opening our doors of starting new things, pursuing your spark, as I talk about in my book, Pursue Your Spark, of what that could look like as you're working through the spark framework. And as I said, I transitioned from being a runner, an athlete, to a different season in fitness. I still get great workouts. I do my Pilates, I do my strength training several times a week. I do my flexibility, and I hike and I walk several times a week. And I've made peace with that. Yes, my body changed through that process. My butt's not that perky anymore, but that's all right. Um, but how much energy are you spending wishing things felt the way they used to? I spend a year on it. When grief isn't acknowledged, it oftentimes turns into frustration. Being at war with yourself is exhausting. You can't change what you can't change. And fighting it is just overwhelming, and it makes you angry. It talks to you that you feel ashamed. You feel ashamed about not being able to be, in my case, the runner, or whatever it is for you. Shame is one of the worst things that we women can do to ourselves. We don't wish it on our best friend, but shame is something that has a deep-rooted feeling of discouragement, low confidence. It's exhausting, and it's absolutely not necessary to be ashamed of something that you can't have very little or no power over, right? Let's stop feeling ashamed of this. Let's stop fighting, I should say, to be discouraged. Let's not be discouraged. Let's not think of ourselves as less than. Let's move forward with what we got. And I've said this before. Move forward already. What you need is already within you. And, all this fighting with yourself results in not only shame and discouraging feelings, it also ends up with low confidence. The confidence we had is like, look at me, I can do all those weights. Suddenly becomes, I only can do those 8 pounds. And that is not necessary, and it's not healthy for us. And it makes us really exhausted. The feeling of, I'm pushing hard, nothing happens. I feel frustrated because my body doesn't respond the same way. And we keep taking all of this and we keep reevaluating constantly. Yep, this should work and this didn't work. And now I'm trying that and I'm discouraged again. And the weights are not going up in weight. Shouldn't I be lifting more weights since I've done this before? All this is so emotionally draining. Let's stop the war with ourselves and with our bodies. Let's stop the draining feeling. Let's stop what drains our energy. And these are points that I just mentioned that drain our energy. And without energy, we cannot move forward and start new things, embrace new things, and move forward. And this is also why women start pulling away from movement, because they feel the shame. They are feeling discouraged. They have lack of confidence. They lost the self-trust in themselves and their abilities. And we need to stop doing this to ourselves, because eventually exercise starts serving its original purpose. Movement should support your life, not the other way around. But many women reach a point when it feels like another item on the never-ending to-do list. We are exercising from the point of guilt. We are guilty because we may have an extra dessert last night, or another glass of wine is one of the things that I often hear when it comes to nutrition. It's like, oh, I got to exercise because now I added extra calories to my budget, and now I need to make sure that I stay within my limits. So they're feeling guilty and saying, okay, now I need to exercise. Or they said, I missed yesterday, so now I got to work doubly hard to make up for yesterday's missed workout. And some of us are exercising out of fear. What happens if I don't exercise one day? What happens to my body? What would it look like if I may just recover instead of exercising? What will happen? Can I catch up? Will I lose everything? And a lot of my clients, when they go on vacation, the first thing they tell me is, oh, I'm not sure if I can exercise, as if I was giving them permission not to exercise. And I say, well, you're going on vacation, you make choices and it may not fit in there. But then they come back and they say, oh, I've lost everything I've gained, which is of course not true. The first noticeable changes in our bodies when it comes to losing strength is after 6 weeks of completely doing nothing, anything. But they fear that they're not back at their same exercise. And just yesterday, I had somebody on the reformer and she said, wow, I could do this exercise better before my vacation. And I said, well, maybe today your body is not responding the same way, or maybe you're tired. Maybe you didn't sleep well enough. I don't think it's the travel that made you noticeably weaker, which wasn't the case. And we oftentimes tend to choose results instead of benefits. What the whole process of I'm making a plan, I set a goal, and that goal is this is what I need to do, I need to reach. Otherwise, the whole plan that I had, it doesn't work and it's not what I want. But along the way, we get stronger. We get healthier. We learn new exercises. We learn more about our body. And the benefit is tremendous, not just the end goal as we're taught. Again, as we're taught that this is the end all. We have to have that goal. Otherwise, the benefits wouldn't count, which is not true. And then when exercise becomes another obligation, we just don't want to do it. The have tos. I have to go lift weights today. I have to go for a run today. No, you don't have to. You don't have to do anything you do not want to do unless you're looking back at what I'm talking about, the guilt, the fear, and the chasing results. But you're losing the fun. And the fun is what keeps us going. The fun is what really lights us up and has us talk to our friends about, wow, I went for this hike in Rock Creek Park, what Heike would say. And oh my God, I saw a turtle that day. This was really awesome. I like that loop that I'm doing because I see a lot of wildlife. That is joy. And we want to continue that joy. We want to foster that. What would movement feel like if it wasn't tied to providing something? This is where the perspective shift happens. So what if we take a different approach to our midlife fitness? What if success isn't measured by getting back to who you were? Midlife fitness is not about repeating the past. It's about what works for you now and today. So let's adjust our expectations from our bodies, and let's not keep stuck on what used to work, what the past produced, but what is it now that we can expect our bodies to how our bodies can perform? How can we respond instead of reacting to those changes? That instead of putting ourselves down for not being able to do a certain Pilates move, but instead of saying, well, today was not such a day where I did the teaser, for instance. But I did a sort of a half teaser and it still felt great and I used the right muscles. And we need to look into supporting what we need now, not what we needed even yesterday. I always say every day is different. When I work with my clients and they come to the Pursue Your Spark Blueprint course and they are doing their exercises from the program, I'm like, do the best you can. That's all you need to do. Let's not expect that if we did the teaser yesterday perfectly, that it will be perfect today. That doesn't mean that you are weaker, that you can't do it, but a lot of things that I already mentioned in this episode may have happened. But what is really important is that we're looking at building strength for this season of life. Not made up categories by the fitness and health industry, not ideas that you see on Instagram and say, ooh, this is what I need to do. Is a pull-up a great exercise? Yeah, but if you can't do it, there's a bazillion other things what you can do instead. So what does all this look like in practice? Confidence doesn't come from finding the perfect plan. It comes from keeping simple promises to yourself. Like you promise yourself that you will do strength training 2 or 3 times a week and you use your weights, your bands, your own body weight, that you incorporate mobility, stretching exercises, mobility and hip openers as we get older, shoulder openers, that you honor your recovery time, that you're trying not to push through every workout and that not every workout is the perfect super duper workout. You have realistic expectations of what you can achieve. With so many of us having arthritis and back issues and knee issues, there has to be a reality check to say, okay, I just can't do this anymore, but I can do something else. Like I said, there's a bazillion other things we can do. And celebrate the small wins. We overlook what we can do. And I just, last week when I was also in Germany, I had the pleasure of visiting my grandkids and their parents in Amsterdam. And my daughter-in-law invited me to a Pilates class at the Pilates studio around her corner. We went to the class, we did our exercises, we had a fantastic class, and she had a breakthrough with her teaser. I know we talked teaser today a lot, but with her teaser, and I was so proud of her. I was like cheering for her in the studio. So these are all important things that we create this consistency that creates confidence. And in episode 261, women often start over because they think they need a better plan when what they need is a more sustainable approach. And you know what? The first step is surprisingly simple. I want you to try this week. Before your next workout, pause for 60 seconds. Ask, how is my energy today? What feels good today? What feels tight? What would be helpful today? Let today's workout fit today's body. You may think that your body has changed and you're falling apart, but you're not. You're simply asking for a different fitness approach, different than what you did before. And the goal is not to become the woman you were 20 years ago. The goal is to be the woman you are today. And that can be a very powerful place to begin. Check out our new graphic for the Pursue Your Spark podcast. And while you're there, leave a review. It will help many more women just like you find the podcast. Next time on Pursue Your Spark, you spend years taking care of people, showing up, doing what's needed, being the one everyone can count on. And then one day, you realize something feels off, not because your life is falling apart, but because you've spent so much time focused on everyone else. You can't remember the last time you asked yourself, what do I want? That's what's next on the Pursue Your Spark podcast.